Bruce, you're a former, do I say recovering policymaker? What's the term of our?
I'm not recovering at all.
I think you're good to go. Just
yeah. Am I on? Yeah,
yep.
I am. So I'm hardly recovering at all. What I want to bring is a little bit of a perspective here for two of my careers. One was 20 years as a journalist, and then 20 years as a policymaker within the government of Nova Scotia, primarily on energy. And almost everything came down to a question of risk and reward. So wherever there was dissent, concern, it really was a misalignment and a feeling that there was too much risk and very little reward for whatever the issue that was on the table. And until we can actually get to a balance where people are comfortable that there is a balance between risk and reward, there's going to be that clash. The other part of it is that it can't be on every single issue. It has to be a little bit more general in the sense that it's not every project. There has to be a sense that on balance, on a larger sense, that we're getting to more good than bad, and there's not a risk that's unacceptable. We've got that balance. And in order to get there, we really need to have the other part of an equation that comes with public confidence, which is about trust. Because you can't have a sense that I'm going to get the rewards unless you trust that the system will deliver it, or that by and large that's going to come. And the language that we've had too often in the public debates has been, you can't trust anybody, it's too negative. And quite frankly, in my generation, the saying was that you can't trust anybody over 30. So, you know, this is not a new concept, that trust doesn't come easily. And I really want to say that trust comes also from a sense of knowing and getting factual information. And today that becomes a very difficult part of our world in order to know who do you trust for your information. And my non-recovering policy world, that's what I'm focusing on a lot these days, is about energy data and energy information and trying to be helpful about that. So when you come to a question of trust, then it's partly how do you build it? Well, it's step by step. It's proof of good intentions. Trust doesn't come overnight. You don't immediately decide to trust everybody. And in fact, it's important to think about trust as a long-term exercise. And the impediments are actually all about fear. It's easier to build distrust than it is to build trust. There's a virus out there. It's in the social media, and everything that's bad is more quickly spread than everything that's good. We know all of that. One of the little examples that I want to talk about, though, about building trust as part of respect, was in Nova Scotia. We spent a lot of time working with First Nations groups about helping them to reach their aspirations when it came to energy. And a lot of it was about renewable energy. And we designed programs, supported them, helped them develop their own strategies and plans so that they could participate in the energy future of Nova Scotia. And interestingly enough, one of the flashpoints of where there was a community clash between the developer was actually on a First Nations project. And it was the First Nations who were then put in the position of having to explain to the local community that they would do their very best to try and find alternatives. They would do things differently if they could, but at the end of the day, if they couldn't, they would have to proceed respectfully. And you know, I spoke to the person who was the leader in that development, and he told me that they had a very respectful conversation with people, and they couldn't do anything different. But at the end of the day, the local people accepted that they had tried. And so I think that it's important for us to build in that kind of culture of respect and to find stakeholders and people that can come with us on making those sorts of decisions. And I just want to close on the issue of credibility. Climate change is really what you would call an existential policy issue. It's just so overwhelming and all-encompassing. It's very difficult to try and get down to a level of concrete things because it's so big and so large. And really, one of our difficulties, I think, is that the way that climate change has been portrayed recently, there's been an undue focus on the price of carbon. And it's really been about, you know, our solution is going to be putting a price of carbon, and this is going to solve the problems. That's not what governments are doing in total. They're doing a lot of other things, but that's the focus. And in fact, some of our best wins have been about performance standards. And performance standards in some ways has more credibility than a general, if I make it really expensive, you're not going to want it anymore and you'll do something different. As opposed to, say, in the fuel standards that we have for automobiles, a big debate in the United States right now, it's part of Canada. But it has made a tangible difference when you have, with law and regulation, you must achieve this. And I'll close on the observation that in Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, two provinces that said you shall have a reduction of GHG emissions are the two provinces that have actually met and exceeded their goals on GHG reductions. So it's credible, it's got tangible results, and we've got to have more of the conversations about how to do that, because that's the only way we're going to be credible.
Lots in there, Bruce. Thanks, especially on the process side and looking at what are some of the key policy tools. Have we been focusing in on some, maybe to the exclusion of others?